You have to go through the process of people thinking you suck in order to not suck. It's like a paradox. It's like you have to suck to not suck, but it's like you're so afraid of sucking that you don't even begin to suck. And it's you have to suck. Okay, so I've been reading this book. It's called The Courage to Be Disliked. I know it sounds really cheesy, but it's really good. Basically, it's like the premise is like this disillusioned young man from society hating the world and his life because of X so and so reasons goes to this philosopher, and he's like, hey, my life sucks, everything sucks. And the philosopher is like, nah, it doesn't suck, it's actually not that bad. And the student's like, no, it does suck. And they kind of have like a debate over whether things suck or not. And look, the philosopher says some really interesting things, and I'm maybe only like 30 or so pages into the book, but I've already learned something, maybe a few things that's really valuable that I wanted to share. It's based off Alfred Adler's psychology. So there's Carl Jung, there's Sigmund Freud, and then there's also Alfred Adler, who apparently is quite a big name in the psychology field that I didn't know. And I really like his approach because it's very much like take responsibility of your own life thing rather than blaming your parents and your past traumas for your inability to to live the life you want to live. It's very kind of Jordan Peterson kind of vibe as well. It's like stop being a loser and stop making excuses, be a loser, and take responsibility for your life. Is kind of the message, you pitiful, filthy swine. Like, that's the message it's giving, in a nutshell, maybe without the spitting. It proposes that, I think, Adlerian psychology proposes that traumas and anything that's happened to you is not actually, like, nothing can actually affect you ever. Like, someone can be really mean to you or really nice to you, and you can say, oh, this person made me feel this way. But it's like, no one can actually make you feel anything. You can only allow them to feel something. So, basically it's saying, ultimately, you can be completely responsible for your internal state, right? So whatever happens, it's like, as long as you have control over your internal state, it can affect or not affect you. There's a really nice Jack Sparrow quote, which basically summarizes this, where it's like, the problem is not the problem, your attitude about the problem is a problem. Essentially, the disillusioned student in the book is like saying, like, because of my past and my upbringing and society and external factors, that's why my life is shit and I can't be happy, and etc, etc. But the philosopher is basically saying, no, that's not true. Like, you're just making excuses to avoid taking responsibility of actually making a life that you want to live. They give this example of like the student's friend who, he's been a shut-in his room for like years, and he's never left his room because every time he leaves, he just gets this like debilitating anxiety, and he just can't like move, and he's like fucking just shaking, and then he has to go back into his room. The guy's saying like, oh, well, but he does want to leave. He does want to like go out into the world, whatever. But for some reason, there's this physical manifestation, happens every time he tries to leave. And the philosopher is basically saying like, look, it might not necessarily be the anxiety is preventing him from leaving, but his fears about going into the world, perhaps failing, perhaps realizing he won't be so safe, maybe that he's not as special as he could be, that his parents tell him, all of these fears that one might have going into the real world, that is so terrifying for him that, and he's not willing to admit that, of course, that's in the shadow, that he has to, like, he's physically manifested anxiety and like these things to prevent him from actually facing the fucking shadows of the world. As another example, it's like there's a writer, there's someone that really enjoys writing, but they have a 9-to-5 kind of thing, so they can only spend so much time doing writing, but ultimately their dream is to be a full-time writer, right? But they never fully take the leap to become a writer full-time. Then they only do it part-time, and it's not because they necessarily don't have time or whatever, but it's because if they only do it part-time, they fail, they can always say, oh, it's because I had a job, I didn't have enough time, therefore I failed because of that reason, not because that maybe, just maybe, I'm a shitty writer and I'm not as good as I thought I could be. No, it's because of external circumstances. And it's like, even if they didn't have a job or they didn't have that excuse, they'll make some excuse to prevent them from actually plunging into the darkness of this adventure of becoming a writer. But it's like, you have to go through this process. You have to, like, let's say, take the leap of faith, try it as much as you can, realize you might not be as good as you are, and most likely that will happen. It's like, I think it's unlikely if you just take the leap of faith, it'll all be magical and everything will work out. No, you'll probably still fall on your fucking face and eat shit, but at least you will fall forward. And basically it's saying, let's like, you have to do that. You have to fall forward, potentially risking getting humiliated, being judged by this and that, to go after what you want. Because if you don't, then you'll just stagnate and you'll live this kind of like half-assed life that's kind of like okay, but it's kind of like, it's just kind of this purgatory feeling of like, it's okay, but it also kind of feels like you're dying, which to me feels like it's a really bad time. So yeah, it's kind of like, it's like, if I don't even try, then I won't even fail, and it's like, well, that's a very losery, weak attitude to have towards your life. Because then you can never actually become anything. It's like, anyone great has to go through the process of potentially failing and humiliating themselves or whatnot. But it's like, you have to go through the process of people thinking you suck in order to not suck. It's like a paradox. It's like, you have to suck to not suck. But it's like, you're so afraid of sucking that you don't even begin to suck, and it's, you have to suck. And basically the philosopher is saying, it's like, well, if you want to change and live your best life, it's not even about skills or your circumstances or all of these things. It's actually about courage, and that's why the book is called The Courage to Be Disliked. Just like, the courage part is very important, because stepping out of your comfort zone to pursue what you really want is fucking scary. And it is. You could fail, you could be humiliated, you could be judged, whatever, and that's very scary, and that's most of the times prevents people from actually taking the step. So how do you get over that fear? Well, you need courage, right? And which I feel like is really beautiful. It's a very like fucking shonen anime, Kingdom Hearts, Sora kind of vibe. Like, yeah, courage, guys, and heart, Digimon, like Tai. And it's like, you can get over embarrassment and judgment and people saying this and that about you, right? In fact, it's like, it's part of the journey. I think you have to get over that. Get faced with it and get over it and realize, hey, I judge myself, your judgment doesn't matter, etc., etc., to actually get anywhere meaningful. In fact, you could even say the whole point of pursuing something you want is to go through this process. Like, whether or not you become a famous writer or not doesn't really matter, but it's like, you going through this journey and kind of confronting your shadows and stuff like that. That's what's important. You can get over that, if it happens, but what you can't get over is physically dying. Okay, because you will die in this life, and that's something you can never fix, right? So that's shit, So you can't. That's unfixable. You will die. But what is fixable is you getting over embarrassment and fear. So you might as well just try and do that, because that path will most likely take you somewhere a lot better than you just dying, regretting everything. Regretting not doing the things you actually wanted to do. And again, it's like, you don't need to be fast, like as in like, when you start doing these things, you don't need to succeed straight away. No, it's probably gonna take a very long time. And in fact, I believe patience is gonna be a huge part of any journey. You take down, you go through to slay the dragon at the end of the quest, the game, or whatever, right? It's gonna take a very long time. So you don't need to pressure yourself. It's not about just quitting your job right now and then, saying fuck you and then just like do whatever you want and go to Iceland or some shit, right? Like, you take a step by step, but it's like, as long as you take one step at a time, slowly and steadily, incrementally towards what you really want, that's all you need to do, Like, there's no pressure to like make some like massive progress in a year just so you can show people like, hey, look, I'm not crazy, I can do it, again, because that's still appealing to the judgments of people, which is something you want to get over. It's like, no, as long as you just do the things you're on the journey to do what you really want to do. Maybe it will take a long time, maybe some people will be faster than you, maybe you'll be jealous, and you're gonna go through all of this shit, but it's like, as long, at the end of the day, as long as you are taking a step one at a time, you're better than who you were yesterday, or at least a week before, then that's fine. No one's pressuring you to succeed anytime soon. The only requirement in my opinion, is that you try to go towards the vector to the heavens. You go towards the place you want to go. As long as you just try to go in that direction, that is sufficient. And of course, learn things along the way so you improve your process of going in that way, and be humble and all of that. But as long, that's all part of the package, right? So as long as you just try, venture forward, my soldiers, then Godspeed, all right? This is gonna be the most terrifying thing I think anyone does, because I think what is the most important thing to you is, it's like the most vulnerable thing to you. That's going after that is the most terrifying, because there is the prospect that you could fail and never have it. And again, it kind of goes back to what I said before. It's like if you never actually go after it, then the potential of it succeeding will always be there. But you could be faced with the reality that it will never succeed if you actually start doing it. So some people feel like it's safer if they don't try at all. If you don't try at all, you won't fail. But again, it's like a paradox. It's like once you start doing it, like you probably are gonna fuck up a lot and be really shit, but that's the only way to actually get good. So, in my opinion, you will never fail, your true calling, what you're really here to do, right? Whatever that could be. You can never fail that as long as you try. You may not succeed immediately, but you will succeed absolutely and definitely. That's a quote from somewhere else. I don't know from who, but it was a good quote. And you will. I really believe you will. If you are doing something that is truthful to you, and and you could be very confused about what is truthful to you. So you'll go down many paths, and some of them will fail. But I believe eventually what you end up with, or you'll just keep shifting from path to path, and that's completely fine. But what you end up with, or you'll get closer and closer to the truth of your path, and that will always lead you somewhere, I believe, happy. Or I don't know, meaningful, fulfilling, positive adjectives, insert here, right? Don't make excuses, take responsibility for your life, go after what you want, slay the dragon, or at least attempt to slay the dragon. You don't even need to slay the dragon, really. You just gotta try to slay the dragon. I think if you end up slaying the dragon, that's a bonus, but the lessons you learn and the friends you meet and, all that great stuff that you'll get along the journey, that's what's really important. It's about the journey, not the destination, and all that stereotypical wanky shit, but it's true. So do your best.